Ready? Well, good afternoon, and I would be remiss if I didn't start today, Veterans Day, by taking this opportunity with the platform I have to thank the men and women who proudly serve our country and who have proudly served our country and provide us the freedom that we all enjoy to do, what we all enjoy doing. So to the men and women who have served our country and are currently serving our country, thank you. It's been a tough couple of days for myself and all associated with the Razorback football program. I made a decision that there needed to be a change in the leadership of our program, and I want to thank Chancellor Steinmetz, President Bobbitt, Chairman Goodson, and the System Board of Trustees for their support of that decision. I do firmly and confidently believe it was the best professional decision and the best decision for our Razorback football program at this time. What makes it really challenging for someone that sits in my chair is the personal impact that I know my decision has and will have on the men and women that work in our football program right now, their spouses and their children and their families, and the impact that I know this decision has on them. I thought our football program had taken some steps backwards in the past few weeks. I had one goal for our football program, one main goal for our football program as we headed into this season. It was a simple goal. I wanted us to be competitive game in and game out. Not to win the Southeastern Conference, but to be competitive game in and game out. And I think that was clear over the past couple of weeks that we were no longer competitive. And a big thing about that is our student athletes. Those 120 men worked their tails off for 9 months to have the reward and the opportunity to put on that uniform on 12 Saturdays during the fall. And that should be a rewarding experience for them. That should be something that they enjoy. And as I spent time with our student athletes before, during, and after games, I got the sense that they were no longer enjoying that experience on Saturdays. And our focus of our Department of Athletics day in and day out is on the success of our student athletes, all 465 of those student athletes. And we had 120 student athletes within our football program that were no longer experiencing the success I thought they needed to experience. Barry Lunney is a former student athlete. He's a Razorback through and through. When I called him yesterday morning and told him of the decision I'd made with the change in the leadership, and I asked Barry to step up. And I asked Barry under very tough circumstances to take on the leadership of our football program. And without pause, he told me yes. I know I will get Barry's best during the next 3 weeks because he loves his football program, he loves this university, he loves this state, and he's invested in what we're trying to do. And I know he truly loves the 120 men that he's now leading within our football program. As I begin this search, I have no doubt that we will have a very strong candidate pool for this head coaching position. Why do I believe that? First, we are the University of Arkansas. We have a very proud and storied tradition within our football program that includes 42 bowl games, a national championship, 13 conference championships, multiple All-Americans and Hall of Fame inductees. We have and we offer our student athletes some of the best facilities in the country. We compete in the Southeastern Conference, and we have a passionate fan base that so desperately wants for this program to be successful. We've had many of our athletic programs currently that are competing on a national level and winning national championships within our athletic department. Our football program can be one of those programs.
Thank you, Hunter. Coach Lunney.
You bet. Well, first of all, I want to say thanks to Hunter for the opportunity and the belief that he had in me to be able to be the guy to step in. As he said, they're under very difficult circumstances. There's other guys on our staff that obviously could have been capable of doing the same thing, and so I appreciate the opportunity that Hunter's given me. I obviously would be remiss without thanking Chad for 2 years ago when he came in and transitioned from our staff from Brett Bielema to think enough of me to be able to keep me and to be a part of this program and school that means so much to me and my family. So I'm be very always grateful for that from Coach Morris. I couldn't help but to think and get a chuckle today as I was thinking about the press conference today, to think about 27 years ago. As a football player here, I was kind of thrust into a similar situation. And for those that, weren't around during that time, I know, Bob and Mike and Otis and Nate, and I may be missing a few other guys. When Joe Kynes so famously took over as the interim coach in 1992 at his press conference, he was asked about being the interim, and he quipped, "We're all interim." And I think he said it best. At that point in time, his attitude was one that was incredible to watch as a player, to watch him step in during that time. We had just come off a loss to the Citadel, which obviously was a black guy on our program, and we didn't even know who the coach was going to be at that point in time as players. We experienced all the range of emotions that our guys are going through right now, the confusion, the disappointment, anger, happy, sad, mad, whatever they are, all those range of emotions are on our football team right now. I experienced those same feelings, and as I was telling the players last night, I learned and I saw firsthand what it looked like for a guy that was appointed as an interim coach to come in and to right the ship and to breathe life into our football players. And a little bit of a different circumstance because he had, basically the bulk of the year. But as I told our players last night, and make no mistake about it, this is all about our players. This is all it's about. It's about giving them their best opportunity to succeed these last couple of weeks. It's all about them. And as I told them last night, one of the things that I gleaned from that experience was whether you were a senior on that football team in 1992 or a freshman, man, there were some good things that came out of that. Those seniors that were a part of that team in 92 that went on the road to play Tennessee and beat them when they were 6-0, number 4 in the country, 27 years later, still people talk about that game to those people that were part of being the seniors on that football team. And the freshman class that was a part of that team, as we all know, the same team that lost their head football coach, they stuck together, they weathered the storm, and 4 years later, that same team was the bulk of the team that went to the SEC championship game. So I used that as an experience last night to relate to these players, to help them understand I know what they're going through. And so because of all those circumstances, the things I've gone through in my time here, obviously Hunter felt I was the right guy for this moment, and there's no doubt in my mind that I am the right guy in this moment. And this is all about our players. And so our job and my job is to make sure that these next few weeks that we figure out a way to play like Razorbacks. And we've lost that the last few weeks. And we're going to do our darndest and everything we can to pump some life back into these guys and go and play our best football game of the year when we go to Baton Rouge in a few weeks.
Thank you, Coach Lunney. Again, we'll take questions for Hunter, and then we'll come back with questions for Coach Lunney in a bit. We'll start here in the front with Tom.
Hey, Hunter, when did you make the decision to pull the trigger on Chad? And what can you tell the fans about your pool of candidates that you, I'm sure, already have in mind?
Sure. Well, I made a definitive decision, Tom. After the game Saturday night, I went up and visited with the chancellor at his residence and made a recommendation to him that he passed on to President Bobbitt and the board. And so that's when definitively the final decision was made. And as will be the case throughout this entire process, I'm not going to comment on anyone who could or will not be a potential candidate for this job, other than to say we will have a very strong candidate pool.
Hunter, I guess the reports were out there that Chad's buyout was a little over $10 million, and I guess there's been other reports he might take a lump sum. Can you clarify what's going on with his buyout? Just how tough is that to have to pay, I know lots of schools are doing it, but how tough a deal is that to pull the trigger when you might have to pay all that money?
Sure. Well, we will follow Coach Morris's employment agreement, which does not include a lump sum payment. So he's got 4 years remaining on his contract. So we will pay him per his contract 70% of his contract value over the course of the next 4 years. And there's also a duty to mitigate within that. And obviously it's a challenge for us to take that money from somewhere and apply it to a buyout. And so, but we've got a great chief financial officer who has assured me that we have the means to do so, and it was comfortable making that change because of that.
And I understand you're not going to give us a list of names, but do you feel like it's important you get a guy that's a sitting head coach? Would coordinators be considered? Maybe guys, former head coaches who have been out of the business for a while. Just what kind of pool are you looking at?
All of the above, Bob. I mean, I want to get the best person in here to lead our football program. So on that list you mentioned, current sitting head coaches, coordinators, former head coaches, all of those will be considered.
Okay, we're gonna go here real quick.
Barry, what was the players' response?
Hunter at this point.
Oh, just Hunter. Okay. Well, Bob took my question.
Okay, let's go next.
All right.
Go ahead.
It's surprising that Bob took somebody's question. I don't know.
We'll come back. Go ahead, Nate. So-
Just after two coaches and two huge buyouts, does this kind of change what you may do for your contract for your next coach, and just regarding the buyouts and situation?
Well, I mean, the buyout situation throughout college athletics, I don't think is great. I mean, there's huge buyouts in all these contracts, and I did say I thought that, and I said it in my opening press conference, that losing football games should be a condition for terms of your employment to be nullified, and that's tough to be a pioneer in that because that hurts your candidate pool moving forward. It has to be an industry-wide change. It can't be one where Arkansas takes the lead on that per se, or it's going to hurt our candidate pool. So I don't see any significant changes in how we do our contracts, and we will pay what we need to pay to get the best person to take this position.
We're gonna send this in, Bobby. in the back.
You said you've seen the program take a couple steps back over the last few weeks. What specifically did you mean by that, and did you think that Coach Morse kind of lost control of his locker room?
I don't know if he lost support of his locker room. I thought that the past couple of weeks that we weren't competing the way we had earlier in the season. I think you go back to the Texas A&M game and how hard we competed in that game, and we gave ourselves a chance to win that game against a very good Texas A&M team in the fourth quarter. And even back to the Auburn game, I don't think Auburn, Alabama are great opponents, but I didn't think we played very well, and I didn't think we competed very well in either one of those games, and we surely didn't compete very well against Mississippi State or Western Kentucky this past Saturday.
Hunter, a lot of criticism maybe on just the timeline of not giving enough time to head coaches. What was it that you saw that showed you that time wasn't going to be the right fit here?
The competitive nature of our football program. Again, I didn't have tremendously high expectations for us this season. One of those expectations was for us to go out each and every Saturday and compete like the Razorback football program should compete, and I thought we were no longer doing that, and I don't think that takes time to motivate the players within your program to compete.
Hunter, have you gotten a sense that, donors and boosters are fully committed to doing whatever it takes to get the best guy in here?
I would say that our Razorback nation is fully committed to getting the best person in here. I think that we all desperately want our football program to be great again.
Okay, we go over here to Trey.
Hunter, you pointed to your discussion with players and not enjoying their experience here. I was wondering who else that you might have consulted with, like I assume, people who give a lot of money, but also what about the common Razorback fan? Did you reach out to any of them, or who else had say, I guess, on how they felt about this program?
Well, I consulted with Chancellor Steinmetz, some members of our board, but I didn't really reach out to anybody on our fan base. I think many of our fans made their thoughts known through various mediums about what they thought about our program. I think you could look at our attendance over the past couple of weeks and see what our fan base felt about our program moving forward. But this was my decision, and through my observation, I spent a lot of time around our football program. It's very, very important to the success of our athletic program that our football program is successful.
Hunter, as an ex-athlete, you've been in this side of the game now for a while as an AD. What have you evaluated with maybe the roster, the talent on the team, and is a radical kind of style maybe needed? Barry Lunney, one of the best at being a straight-up football player. Is that kind of something you're looking at? Because, we see it every Saturday, having trouble even competing talent-wise as well.
Sure. Well, I will tell you that there's plenty of talent in our locker room. It may not be Alabama-level talent, but we have plenty of talent, I believe, firmly within our locker room. And so that'll be up to whoever we choose as our next head coach, what type of system they employ as a head coach to be successful and help us win football games. So I'm not going to put myself in a box to say I'm going to bring in a triple option coach or anything like that as a radical move. Or it's going to be we're going to hire the best football coach and allow them to put in the best system to make sure that our program's successful.
Hunter, a couple of times this year you've said that you saw progress in the program, that it may be not visible with results, but you saw progress. What do you feel happened that halted that progress? What internally is happening with this team?
I think it really was I look back to the second half of the Kentucky game, and we had fought really hard against Texas A&M. We had fought and played really well in the first half versus Kentucky. Probably did not have the lead we thought we should have had at halftime of that game, and I thought our season really turned when we couldn't close out that game and get that win against Kentucky. And I thought at that point in time our student athletes started to lose a little bit of belief on if we could actually ever get over the hump with the current leadership.
Hunter, when you look at what's going on right now and the search that you talk about undertaking, you have a recent search under your belt already in terms of the men's basketball program. How important is it to you to feel like, you know what, I've already gone out, vetted a search, I've already looked for candidates and sold the school to those candidates too? How much does that help you with this football coaching?
Absolutely. That search was a great learning experience for me very early in my tenure, a little bit over a year into my tenure, about what people outside of Fayetteville think of the University of Arkansas and how positively people think of this institution and this state and what this athletic program, at that point in time, our men's basketball program, and what they believe our football program should be. And so that was a great learning experience for me to go through that and really to see on a national level the perception of the University of Arkansas and our athletic program.
Hunter, after turning this coach over in less than 2 years and looking like that is going to be more prevalent in college football as we move forward, how do you assure the next head coach that they're going to get the time to build this program and really take them in the direction that you want Arkansas football to go?
Sure. That's my job to sell them on that. And I mean, quite honestly, I know I've got to get this search right. We cannot afford, as a Department of Athletics, to go through this 2 to 3 years from now. This gives the timing of this change gives me a little bit longer runway to really do my due diligence on this search and make sure that we get the right candidate in here, and then we allow that right candidate the time they need to build a program. Obviously, it's going to take steps. That first step is we've just got to be competitive. We've got to put a competitive product out on that field that we all feel proud to support Saturday after Saturday. And then from that competitiveness will become wins, and those wins will start to multiply year after year. But the first thing is we've just got to put a competitive product out there on the field.
Yeah, all right, a couple things. What was the meeting like with the players last night? How'd you think Barry handled that?
Barry handled it great. I gave some remarks to the young men. The first thing I did was apologize to most of them for how they found out about the change. I had set up a text message to go to them at about 10:50 that scheduled a meeting at 7 o'clock. I had to travel yesterday to our women's soccer game. As is often the case, the story leaks out and somebody gets his story, and then our student athletes have to find out at a less desirable way than I would have preferred. So the first thing I did was apologize to each and every one of them about how they found out about that, and then talked about my decision to make that change in the leadership, and talked about my decision to appoint Coach Lunney. And quite honestly, the kids were really excited about Coach Lunney. I think for the reason we talked about. He's a Razorback. He's walked in their footsteps. He understands what they're going through, having an interim coach. He pointed to that big win over Tennessee. And I think, he's got them believing that we can have some special things happen over the last couple of weeks of this season.
When you made the call to appoint Barry, did you know about his history of being on the 92 team and going through an interim coach situation?
Kevin Trainer's pretty good about filling me in on some of the history. So, yes.
And I know it's a small window, 2 games,
Yeah.
but are you evaluating Barry to be the guy, like if they go to Baton Rouge and win or something crazy? Or, hey, you never know, man. But Barry started his first game at Tennessee and beat the Vols, so.
Yeah.
I guess, and have you assured Barry, hey, we want you to stay part of the program, whoever the new coach is, or kind of where does that stand?
I'm excited to have Barry Lunney as our interim head coach. He was excited about the opportunity, again, under some tough circumstances. He did a great job, I think, energizing our young men last night under a very difficult set of circumstances. I think they're excited about moving forward over the next 2 to 3 weeks. And I'm not going to say I'm evaluating Barry, but we'll tell you Barry's got a great opportunity over the next 2 to 3 weeks, and he's already hit the ground running and has been very impressive in his first 24 hours.
We'll take a few more. We'll start here with Trey.
I think there's a misconception from the public about what search firms do, and I just wanted to ask, are you going to be using a search firm, and if so, what type of role will they be in?
Sure. I believe it's my role as an athletic director to identify candidates that I think are the best fit for the University of Arkansas. We will probably use a search firm or some type of a consultant to help me with the management of the search, meaning reaching out to gauge interest, to see, to do background checks, things of that nature. But it's my job as a director of athletics to run this search, to identify the appropriate candidates that are the right fit, and to, in the end, identify the best candidate for this position.
A couple more. We'll start on the left.
How important do you think it is to continue the offensive scheme that they have going here, and is that going to be a big factor when you consider candidates?
Well, you may want to ask Coach Lunney about what his scheme's going to be for the next 2 weeks. I don't want to put any pressure on him, but again, that's going to go back to whoever we select. And to me, your scheme should meet your personnel. So if we hire a coach that has a scheme that is scheme A, that's his preference, he better make sure that he can come in here and take the student athletes that we have and create a scheme that works for the talent we have on this team right now. And then as he begins to recruit the players that fit his scheme a little bit better, then employ that scheme.
We have two more here. We'll start with
Got a couple things. What was Chad's reaction when you told him? Do you feel like he felt it was coming? And secondly, given the early signing date, the time frame that you're working under, can you talk about that?
Sure. Chad and I meet every Sunday, and we had met after the Mississippi State game, and he understood from that meeting, it was a very candid meeting after that the Western Kentucky game was a really key game for him and his tenure here. So I don't think that Sunday, our meeting yesterday, took him totally by surprise. I don't think it should ever take anybody totally by surprise when you let them go. It was a tough meeting. Chad Morris is a great friend. We left that meeting with a hug and some tears, and he will remain a great friend. And he understands, and I understand that was a professional decision.
take one final one.
The time frame, obviously, the early signing period's key because we've got some recruits that have committed to the University of Arkansas that we want to retain, and we want to give our new coaching staff an opportunity to recruit additionally prior to that signing day. And so giving them a runway to do that is important, but I think we've given ourselves a runway that we're not going to be in a rush. We still got 3 weeks left in the regular season, another week for conference championship games, so we've got a little bit of time to get this search done the right way and get the right person in here and still allow them time to recruit.
Hunter, did you have a list of specific names that you want to go after before firing Morris, or are you really going into it cold?
I have developed a list of candidates, absolutely. But what I haven't done, because I didn't think that's the right thing to do when I still have a head coach, I didn't put any feelers out to say who's interested. I think that's not fair to Coach Morris for me to go out behind his back and see who may be interested in the position while I still have a sitting head coach. But I will start that today and working through the list of candidates that have done up to see who truly is interested.
All right, we'll take questions now for Coach Lunney. Matt, let's go over to the left.
Hey, Barry, I wonder, who are some of the mentors that maybe you reach out to yesterday, today, maybe you talk to about this situation, get advice?
Well, I'm pretty blessed in that respect because I have a guy that shares a name, or I share his name, that has been a pretty fair head high school coach in his career. And, I say that, obviously, you guys know I'm talking about my dad, and who has, had a tremendous high school career here in the state of Arkansas, has been following this program for years, whose father played here for the Razorbacks in 1946 through 49, John Lunney, who started bringing me to games when I was 8 and 9 and 10 years old. So I think I started there, surrounding myself with a guy that's got a lot of wisdom and seen a lot of things through, and even following Arkansas football. He's witnessed that over the years, not just as a fan, but as a parent of a player, as a parent of a coach. And so it started there with him. Really, it's been such a whirlwind. That's kind of where it's ended, to be honest with you. I mean, the last 24 hours has been a blur. And people say that all the time, but it's really been true. We went to eat lunch yesterday as a family. I'm not even sure where we ate. I was on the phone the whole time. I don't know what I ate. I don't know where we ate, but I do believe we ate lunch. And but I've been using my dad as a resource, not constantly, not on the phone 24 hours, but I'm going to use him. We've got Turner Gill that is sitting in our office that that Chad hired in the off season and Hunter brought in the off season, who, is a tremendous resource and going to be for me. Bobby Allen, who's seen this program, the good and the bad and the ugly over the last several years. Ron Cooper is a former head coach that I've already gleaned some things from him. And so I think it's going to be a mixture of everybody. And then obviously using my best judgment, I'm going to have to make some decisions, not hardcore decisions, but I'm going to have to make some day-to-day decisions on my own. And I'm ready, prepared to do that. And that's why I'm sitting here at this table.
Barry, aside from motivating players, how do you motivate basically a lame duck staff, and just what do you do as far as recruiting this open week?
Sure, that's a good question. I think Hunter met with us this morning and said it very clearly and very well, and I think he said things that we all know. Is everybody at our table, almost to the man, has been through this in some way, shape, or form, and the thing you can't lose sight of, and that we're going to refuse to lose sight of, is that we don't really owe anything to anybody other than our players and ourselves to make the best of the next 3 weeks for these young men. And we got, like Hunter said, we've got 120 players down there that has not reaped the benefit of the hard work, the labor, the off season. Football is. No offense, I see Coach Neighbors back here, and who was one of my first youth coaches that I ever had, by the way. The best, I should say the best youth coach I've ever had. And that's what makes football so unique. You work all the way year round, and anymore it is truly year round. Summer, fall, spring, and you get 12 chances. You get 12 chances to reap benefits of a victory. And when you don't, man, it can become tiring and laborsome, and it's becomes a burden when you put all that work in without the effort. And so we've got 2 weeks left of a guaranteed 12-game season. We got two games left for them to go to try to reap benefits of the work and the effort that they put in the off season. And so we owe that to them as a staff, these kids, and we owe that to ourselves to put our best foot forward for these last 2 football games. And I'm very confident that we're going to do that.
Coach, with the bye week, how much can you do with that much time to get ready for LSU? How much can you change? And do you feel like you can tailor the game a little bit more towards your personnel with all that time?
Well, those are good questions as well, Nikki. I think you're limited. I know you are. You're limited in what exactly you can do with the short turnaround. We do have an extra couple days of prep that we will use for our advantage, that we have to. LSU plays a game this week. So that in itself gives us an advantage of a few days of studying them and learning some more intricate details about things that we're going to see from a game plan standpoint. Can you install, or would you want to install drastic changes? No. We've been working hard the last 2 years on our schemes on both sides of the ball and special teams. I think we would be remiss at this point to come in and try to do a wholesale change, and I don't think that's necessary. Really, at the end of the day, what it comes down to is we got to play with more heart. It doesn't matter what scheme we had. We could install the triple option in the bye week, and if our guys don't believe in each other and believe that they're going to win and play with great resolve and effort and toughness and grit, it doesn't matter what we do in that regard. And that's really what we've seen for the last few weeks since, like Hunter said, the halftime of the Kentucky game. We just haven't been the same. I think our players lost heart a little bit after we had a game in our grasp and we let it go, and I think it hurt and stung them. And we just haven't recovered from that in a lot of ways. And so my main concern and my main priority is not scheme-based. Sure, is there going to be some things that I would like to see, some small things? Yes, there are. Will those be obvious to the outside eye? Probably not. But my main concern is to get these guys to give their best foot forward and play our best football game of the year. Again, I want to say this, and our kids understand this. I said this last night. Our goal is to play our best football game of the year against Baton Rouge. And whatever that looks like, I don't really care, but I want it to be our best football game.
Barry, you know as well as anyone the potential for what this program can do. What needs to take place, do you think, to get back to that level? And I got one more after that.
Can he do that, Kevin? He can't. Okay. He's trying to sneak in. Well, that's right. Well, I mean, you got to have a guy, that obviously that Hunter's going to be. There's no doubt in my mind is going to do a great job of finding somebody that understands this place, whether you're from here or not. It's important, I think, to understand the state and the culture. Anybody that's come from the outside that's been successful has usually embraced that. And I'm not saying Chad didn't, because I've seen him do that and make great attempts to do that. So I think it starts there. I think you got to understand the history and the heritage of the program. I think that I think one of the things that's key is recruiting footprint, and I think Chad had a good plan for that. And I think that somebody could piggyback on that and use that as a springboard to continue that emphasis. And it's a tough league. We all know that. It's the best league in football, the best division in football. But we all have seen there's been ebbs and flows in this over the years we've seen the Razorbacks spike and be contenders, not just for the SEC championship. We've played in the game 3 times. And so it's been done before, and I'm a firm believer what's done before can be done again. One of my favorite movies is the old movie The Edge, about them being trapped in the woods with the grizzly bear. You remember that one? Alec Baldwin and I think Anthony Hopkins, right? And he had to believe in Anthony Hopkins in that he can kill the bear. And he said, I can't kill the bear. He said, yeah, what one man can do, another can do. And he's right. What one team in the history here can do, another can do. I'm not saying that it's easy, but it can be done. And you just got to, there's got to be a perfect storm of events. You got to have a good senior class. That's going to be critical for us to keep these players together so they continue to grow and mature together in this process. Like I mentioned before in my opening statement, my freshman year, things did not go very well early on for us, our freshmen. Our head coach had got let go after 1 game. But yet we stuck together and laid the foundation to be a senior class that took Arkansas to their first ever SEC championship game. And so I think sticking together is going to be important for our football team, finding the right guy, obviously, that understands the history and the heritage of this program and to hit the ground running with it.
What's the game day setup going to look like from a coaching standpoint? Have you gotten that far? And can C.J. O'Grady, is there a route back to the team for C.J.?
No, there's not. And as far as game day, we're going to take Daniel DePrado, who served as our special teams analyst and worked hand in hand with me in the special teams units. I'm going to put Daniel on the field so he can run the meetings and coach on the field. I think that was the easiest, a very clear, easy decision to make for our football team. And so other than that, you won't see a lot of game day changes. Joe Craddock will continue to call the plays, and obviously Chief will run our defense. And like I said before, it's going to be less about scheme, and it's going to be more about trying to get our players to play with great resolve and character.
Coach Lunney, obviously not a lot of time left for much this season. And the future, though, the recruits that have committed to the university, there's been a few that have dropped off already. What can a staff do in a situation like this? You've been through it before, to try and retain these guys the best you can.
Well, I'm sorry, Tom, I didn't get to your second part of your question. So here we go, right here. This was it, right? And, well, I think the first thing, when you recruit a kid and you get a kid committed, usually it's twofold. I mean, very seldom is a kid committed solely for the purpose of a coach. It's usually a split between a coach and the university, the draw, the program, the facilities, the educational opportunity, the culture and the environment in Northwest Arkansas. It's split. So as a recruiter, we sell that, right? You go to a kid's home, you sell. You don't sell just yourself. You don't sell just your coaching staff. You sell the university. You sell the Razorbacks. You sell the state and the pride that this state takes in our football program. And so I think you just got to continue to sell that part. Say, hey, remember when we talked about this originally, this wasn't just about one person, one coach. This was about our program. You remind them of that.